welcome to Good Game. I'm Bajo.
And I'm Hex.
Hex, how are you with the sight of blood?
Fine, most of the time.
Well, good, because this week we're having a look at Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2, and it's not shy of the red stuff.
Also this week, two of the biggest games from last year have DLC loaded and ready for review. Assassin's Creed 4 Freedom Cry and The Last of Us Left Behind.
Plus, Goose charts the universe to find out what makes EVE Online more than just a game.
EVE is just a cardboard box with 300,000 people in it and no rules.
But before all that, can you name this game?
Pleased to meet you. What's wrong with your eyes?
I'm the crazy gambler. I used to bet anything against anyone.
That sounds like fun.
And now it's time for the news with Goose.
Thanks, guys. Gearbox Software is suing developer 3D Realms again, this time for unauthorized use of their intellectual property Duke Nukem. Gearbox acquired the rights to Duke back in 2010 and is now suing 3D Realms, Interceptor Entertainment and Apogee Software after they announced work on a new Duke Nukem game without Gearbox's approval. Scott Miller and George Brassard from 3D Realms have admitted their new game entitled Duke Nukem Mass Destruction does in fact infringe on the IP and apologised to Gearbox. However, there was no word on whether the game is still planned to go ahead. Sony Pictures has secured the rights to a film about the age-old rivalry between Nintendo and Sega. The film will be a behind-the-scenes business thriller adapting the upcoming book Console Wars by Blake Harris, which chronicles the battle between the two corporate giants throughout the 90s. Writers Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, who penned the hit films Superbad and Knocked Up, are set to write and co-direct the movie. DayZ creator Dean Rocket Hall has announced he will be leaving Bohemia Interactive and will step down as head developer of DayZ Standalone by the end of the year. Dean has stated he will remain with the studio as long as he is needed, but plans to eventually return home to New Zealand and start his own studio dedicated to creating what he's calling the perfect multiplayer game.
Oh man. Are you ready? Totally.
Suck it, Riley!
Are you kidding?
When Ellie and Joel met each other in The Last of Us, Ellie was a pretty hardened teenager. This DLC, Left Behind, is all about a younger, more innocent Ellie and her strong friendship with Riley.
What did the triangle say to the circle?
What is that?
You're so pointless.
Fuck you! You found another pun book?
Now, I can't speak from experience because I haven't been a teenage girl myself, but it felt pretty authentic.
Yeah, I mean, it felt pretty natural to me, and it was nice just seeing Ellie goofing around like a regular teenager. And of course, it's such a contrast to the horror we know is all around them.
In your face!
And it's just nice seeing a game put so much emphasis on developing its characters. A good half of this chapter is spent just walking around and chatting. It's pretty brave for a third-person shooter to take such lengthy timeouts between the action. And there's such realism to the banter between them both that I kept finding myself drawing this out to hear all of their dialogue.
What do you think?
Adorable. Why, thank you, kind pigeon.
And that's a sign of being truly invested in these characters, and that's something this game does exceptionally well.
Yeah, I just love all the casual references to things that we take for granted today that are so alien to them.
What's a Facebook? Maybe it prints our faces in a book?
In between the moments where we see the girls having fun together, the game also keeps flashing forward. These later scenes are set towards the end of the original game during the winter portion. Here we're seeing a much more independent Ellie. Joel's been wounded and Ellie is on the hunt for medicine.
Yes.
These sections are a mix of scavenging and combat that felt very reminiscent of that original game. However, again, playing as Ellie, she has far less weapons than Joel, so you have to be a bit more cautious. She still has so much fight in her though, doesn't she?
Absolutely. The highlight for me was this three-way battle.
Hey, what'd you guys find outside? Not a damn thing.
There's a bunch of hostile survivors looking for Ellie, but what they didn't know is there were also some infected clickers in the next room. This is developer Naughty Dog's combat at its best.
Yeah, the combat still packs a lot of punch. This may be a small niggle, but I did get a bit frustrated with hints popping up a little bit too early. The little L3 icon would often ding unnecessarily. Go away, I'm not lost. I'm just being thorough about my scavenging.
Weston's Pharmacy. That sounds promising.
So, what are you giving it?
Well, there is nothing radically new here, and it's not super long, but I still think it's absolutely worth jumping back into this just to simply have more of that splendid storytelling. I'm giving it 9 out of 10 rubber chickens.
I'm just so in awe of these characters. I mean, Ellie was already one of my favourite gaming heroines, and now I just feel like I know her that much better, having seen this extra side of her. And that ending was so masterfully handled, so touching and brave too, especially when it feels like so many blockbuster games are just playing it safe these days. I'm giving this 9.5.
And now it's time for us to return to the high seas with another DLC expansion, Assassin's Creed 4: Freedom Cry. Freedom Cry is set 15 years after the events of Black Flag. With Kenway back in dreary old London, this time it's our old friend Adewale at the helm. Now a fully fledged brother of the Assassin's Guild, Adewale is continuing the honourable pursuit of Templar genocide.
The DLC kicks off with great pace. You're thrown straight into a tough but familiar sea battle. As the odds turn against you, you're forced to flee through a raging storm. Eventually overcome by elements, you're thrown overboard only to drift ashore at Port-au-Prince, a town fueled by slavery.
It's here where our hero finds himself torn between his assassiny duties and fighting the demons of his past.
Human cargo makes for lucrative trade.
One of the issues that I have with Adewale as a character is that he's very two-dimensional.
Profit makes them ignorant.
Captain Kenway?
Kenway was unpredictable and, let's be honest, a bit of a jerk, which was fun to watch. Adewale is just so straight and narrow and, to be honest, kind of boring.
Yeah, it's good to have some contrast though, and there are some great supporting characters that you meet along the way.
You know nothing.
You have the brand of a slave, the eloquence of a scholar, hands of a sailor, and an assassin's hood. Few weapons. I think the storm stranded you.
But yes, Adewale doesn't keep you guessing for long as he quickly joins the rebels in their effort to abolish slavery.
Perhaps our needs may align for a time. What do you need?
Recruits, liberated slaves. The warriors among them join me. The others grow the community for which we fight.
Freeing slaves and recruiting militia will unlock a series of useful bonuses. There are quite a few ways to do this. Stealthily clearing plantations and taking down slave vessels yield the best results. But there are smaller random events peppered throughout the port which will also contribute.
You can interrupt auctions and slave marches, free slaves from cages, and carry injured slaves to freedom. That said, essentially they all end up being the same fight patterns. Short fight, release prisoners, short fight, release prisoners. It's tedious work, especially as you need to free certain amounts of slaves before the story missions unlock.
Tedious? No, I'll never tire of those swashbuckling duels. There has been a slight change to the arsenal for Freedom Cry. Adewale's weapon of choice is the machete. It's brutal and boasts some devastating takedowns, but it also doesn't offer anything new to the combat mechanics. The blunderbuss, however, allows for some interesting new methods of attack. Its high damage, widespread shot can take down groups of bad guys. I found myself actually herding large groups of enemies in an effort to take down as many as I could with one shot. You feel pretty badass.
Yeah, that was about the only new feature that I liked. There are more chests, secret loots, and dive points for the explorers out there, and these will stretch the playtime out to about 6 hours. But if you follow the story, you can probably knock this over in about 4 hours. I have to say, Hex, I was pretty disappointed that this wasn't going to be a legendary sea monster battle pack. I want to fight the almighty Cthulhu! Or the giant squid that Ubisoft already made in the last game as an Easter egg. You could even make it canon friendly by making it some sort of Abstergo film project. Just make it happen, Ubisoft, I don't care how.
canon friendly. Double meaning in that. Well, while that all sounds amazing, Badge, I really enjoyed Adewale's fight for freedom, so I'm giving it 8 out of 10.
I'm giving it 6.5.
Désolé. I have nothing to offer but thanks.
Nothing else is needed.
One of the very first games that really engaged me was Startropics on the original Nintendo system. In Startropics, you play as this character Mikey, and he is a member of a small village on an like a South Seas Pacific island, and his girlfriend, I think, gets captured, or no, his the head of the village is captured, who happens to be his uncle, and he goes on this adventure to try to find his uncle, and what he uncovers this alien conspiracy. The aliens are trying to invade Earth. But all he has is his yo-yo that he upgrades over time, becomes this like super crazy yo-yo with like spikes and stuff, and he gets like shoes that like let him kind of teleport over the screen and like kick everybody at the same time. Maybe it was because the guy's name was Mikey and my name's Mike, but something about going up against all these hordes of aliens and crazy monsters with just a yo-yo really kind of struck me. The thing I liked about it a lot, it had this like really great score. It was really cool, and I liked it a lot. It really kind of stuck with me.
In the early hours of January 27th, 2014, a mighty battle took place. A battle that would create ripples across the universe.
It's shaping up to be one of the biggest fights in all of EVE history, all of MMO history as well.
It was pretty amazing. I mean, basically, it sort of happened by mistake.
So we thought we were pretty confident jumping in and going for it. When we saw the other side, by that stage there were thousands of people pouring into the system. That's when we knew this was going to be a big one.
Primary is still at Curia
117 broadsword.
It was the largest, most destructive online battle in the history of video games, to be known as the bloodbath of BR5RB, and all caused by a simple unchecked auto payment box. It appears human error led to the greatest ever war in the universe of EVE Online.
If someone wants to understand EVE, probably the easiest way for me to explain it is to borrow a quote from another well-known EVE player. He said, "What is EVE?" And he said, "EVE is just a cardboard box with 300,000 people in it and no rules."
It's an epic sci-fi simulation universe where you can play with hundreds of thousands of people from around the world, all in one server, all in one environment. And really, you have the freedom to do whatever you want.
EVE Online predates WoW and has attracted over 500,000 subscriptions, which begs the question, why has this MMO survived when others haven't?
It's brutality. Yeah, absolutely. I think it all comes down to that. It's not easy, and I think gamers crave games that aren't easy.
It's about the struggle of, keeping your assets safe, and, you're never safe in EVE, so you risk every time you wander.
I think EVE has become such a huge phenomenon, has lasted for so long, because it's a game where we give so much control and influence to our players. It really is a game where the actual stories of the game, the true epicness of the game, comes from what the players do themselves. And we really believe that the best experiences are going to be the ones that players get to control themselves.
The whole content of the game is generated by players. The big battles, CCP, the manufacturers, and just cross their fingers and hope like hell everything's going to sort of hang together whilst these people go nuts on their servers. And obviously they get some things they're not entirely happy about, but they live with it and they go, well, that's part of the concept.
You can do things in EVE Online that would get you banned in other MMOs. People originally engage in piracy, griefing, scamming. Some people make a career out of doing those things within EVE, and it's one of those realities that you have to live with.
I wouldn't want to think that everyone is out to hurt everyone else, but generally people love being the bad guy.
So our organisation has a vast spy intel network. They embed themselves and work for different corporations, alliances within the game. And then whenever anything gets broadcast through their networks, they're able to relay that intel back to us in real time.
Amongst all of this organised chaos, there still remains a strong sense of humanity in the EVE universe.
EVE is a game with so many player-run groups that help other players get involved with it. EVE University is probably the most famous one. It started many years ago. I actually joined it when I started playing back in 2006. And it's an organization that's built by players for players to teach each other the way to play the game, the tricks of the trade, basically, and to support each other through that new player experience.
Just the whole sandbox concept is you can do whatever you want. So some people go, I'd like to help new players. And that's literally what they do. And then they just say, okay, I'm just going to advertise within the game. I'm happy to help you if you're having difficulty in this game.
It's because it doesn't cater to the lowest common denominator. This is a tough world. You're going to have to learn how to play in this world. It's not going to be easy, but then the world, like the universe, is there to be taken if you have, you know, the passion for it and the ability and the skill.
It is very daunting for a new player, and EVE has some challenges in its learning curve. And most games are a fairly flat tonic learning curve. EVE is a cliff face.
The EVE universe is very harsh and dark, and you think you are on top and the next second you are way down.
Effectively what happened was the wallet settings that were designed to pay the monthly sovereignty bill lapsed, and our rent wasn't paid, which meant that the station that we were basing out of, we didn't own it anymore. The bad guys that we were going up against decided to occupy that place, and there was a lot of value tied up in that particular station.
For some reason, both sides decided they might be able to win this, because if one side wasn't convinced they'd be able to win it, they wouldn't even engage. But they both decided that they could win it, so they dogpiled in, to use the term, and the rest is history.
By the time it was all over, 75 Titans gone, 13 super carriers destroyed, 370 dreadnoughts totally obliterated.
The equivalent value of upwards, I think about, the current number is about $300,000 worth of value was lost.
So a Titan is the largest spaceship in the EVE Online universe. It takes quite a number of months to train up a pilot to fly it, and a 1 year plus time frame. They're probably worth anywhere between $4,000 to $5,000, and they don't usually get destroyed. So I think my Titan was the third to go. So I sort of knew things were going to go downhill from there.
Yes, it hurts to lose it, but what's the point of having it in the hangar if you don't want to fly it? That's the point of EVE. It really becomes there is this something more at stake.
EVE's more than just a game because of the community that has built around it. It is at its core a social game. Sure, it's got internet spaceships and explosions and people scamming people and things like that, but what makes the game special is the social interactions. In some ways, the game that happens outside of the game, the metagame around EVE Online, is where the real meat of it is.
It's a different experience. It's a social experiment, if you like. It's an economic experiment.
Well, some would say like it's spreadsheets in space, but I truly feel like I'm accomplishing something, that I am building something within the game. And having that taken away from me, it becomes more than just, okay, I lost something in a game.
It was pretty fun actually. It was exciting. You know, those things are supposed to be used. If you don't fly them and don't use them, what's the point of having it? You feel a little twinge of pain, but it was pretty exhilarating. It was pretty great to be a part of.
There aren't many games out there that can claim to have had the same real-life impact that EVE has had on its players. Sure, there might come a time when the servers are shut down and this universe ceases to exist altogether, but at least every player will be able to look back and say, I was there.
Thanks Thanks, Goose. The original Castlevania Lords of Shadow was an underrated and impressive reboot for the series. But does Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2 rise from the grave or rot in the mud?
I'm dying for a little drop of blood.
Now, quick spoiler warning, we can't really discuss the story without spoiling what happened at the end of the last game.
Hex, the last game came out in 2010. I think the statute of limitations on spoiler warnings is well over.
Well, yeah, but it's still
Okay, fine. Spoiler warning, you play as Dracula. It even says it on the box, you play as Dracula.
Don't you dare call me that. I Saint Dracul.
You're Dracula.
All right, fine, I guess it's not that much of a spoiler. Look, the setup goes like this. It's modern day and you've been resurrected by your old enemy Zobek. He needs your help because Satan's acolytes are preparing for Satan to come back to Earth. I mean, this is bad news for everyone. So you make a pact with Zobek to stop his return, and as a thank you, he promises he'll end your immortal life.
I will deliver the fatal blow to your heart myself.
And I am sure you will fulfill that vow.
There's such a great start to this game, and I love the creative license they've taken with this Dracula mythology.
The child Trevor was hidden from his father and raised a holy warrior of the Brotherhood in secret, so that one day he would be ready to stand against his own blood, as foretold.
There are deep characters with complicated motivations, and there's quite a lot to catch up on.
As he lay dying, Trevor finally revealed his true identity. Dracula was driven mad with grief and rage over the revelation.
It might pay to watch that introduction more than once though, because there is quite a lot to absorb and you might not get it all the first time around. And it just gets more complicated from that point on.
Son, I had no choice.
Yes.
For example, why is my dead son haunting me from a medallion that summons a quick travel wolf? What's all that about?
Well, I think you just have to kind of roll with that stuff, Badge. It was great to hear Sir Patrick Stewart and Robert Carlyle reprise their voices as Zobek and Dracula. I mean, their performances definitely helped to sell some of the more absurd story points.
Has she said anything yet?
Yes. To tell you the truth, she hasn't shut up.
Yes, I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you put Patrick Stewart in your game, it becomes a better game. Story aside, there are a few changes to the first game. Gone is the combat cross, and in its place is the blood whip. It's essentially the same weapon though, with the same combos and the same direct and area of effect attacks. And there's a similar upgrade tree to work your way through.
The magic system has also been replaced. So now you have the Void Sword, which heals you with every successful attack, and Chaos Claws, which break enemy armor. Just didn't like the feel of them though. Neither has any range really, and their use is limited by how much magic you have. So you just don't get to spend enough time using them to get your head around each one's unique combo set.
Yeah, I do like what they were going for though, that tug of war between using a weapon to regen your health and attacking. And when the combat comes together, it can be very satisfying, timing those blocks, launching your foes into the air and ripping into them. It's fantastic when games like this make blocking so important, but there are a few things holding the combat back. There's very little hit stun on enemies, and they're constantly throwing unblockable attacks, making it hard to get into a good flow. You basically have to resort to constantly dodging. It looks exciting, but it does take a little away from the juggle and combo fighting you should be focusing on.
Personally, I didn't like it when they started throwing guns into it. I mean, that's just a bit of a pet peeve of mine in games like this. I mean, they're just these annoying guys that stand off to the side shooting at you while you're trying to build up a combo. And talk about bringing a knife to a gunfight.
Well, at least they're knives attached to the end of whips. Another change is that you can also control the camera freely, which you couldn't do in the last game. It sounds great on paper, but it can work against you at times. A fixed camera can frame environments and fights to make everything feel more epic. And the God of War series is the master at this. Lords of Shadow 2 still does this at certain points, but there's also annoying instances where you're fighting the camera, especially in tight corridors.
Yeah, I think it was the right decision to go with manual camera control. I mean, they needed to free things up because this is a much more open and interconnected world. So it's essential to be able to look around and find new paths and secrets.
Yeah, I agree. The entire city is built on top of Dracula's castle, so it all leads back into itself, with new sections that unlock as you gain more powers. I think I actually preferred the more linear design of the previous game because it just had good pace to it. And with this one, the environments weren't really interesting enough to be constantly revisiting them.
Yeah, the modern day kind of setting blended with an ancient castle was a cool idea, I think, but it all ended up feeling a bit bland. That first game had such great variety of settings and some really beautiful, colourful art. There are still some nice areas in this, but a lot of it is pretty generic warehouse-type places and city streets.
It can be poorly laid out at times too. I spent quite a bit of time just wandering around, not really knowing where to go. For example, in one area I could see the map was saying I had to head over there, but it was highlighting a point for me to jump on that I just couldn't possibly make. Fair enough, I thought. Clearly, I just needed to unlock some sort of new power to reach it. So I followed the path nearby. Turns out I just had to stand on a very specific part of the level for it to show me where I actually had to jump. Frustrating.
I do like how quickly you can climb around. Although the flocks of bats indicating everything you can climb on could have maybe been a tad more subtle. Now, normally I'm a big fan of stealth sections, but I was not a fan of the stealth in this game. You regularly have your weapons disabled and have to figure out ways to get past guards by turning into a rat, or distracting them with swarms of bats, or possessing them. They're more like strict puzzles with one specific solution than actual stealth, with no room for creative thinking. Get it wrong and it's instant death.
Yeah, those felt pretty stilted and dated to me, and there were more of them than there should have been. There's also a lot of climbing around. In fact, I was surprised at how little combat there actually was. The boss fights were definitely highlights, with some of those big bosses making a return. Although I could have done without the lady in the hamster ball.
Give yourself over to me, my Goose.
Another thing that really stood out to me is that there is a lot of blood in this game. Like, a lot. And okay, I know this is a game about vampires and dark themes and all that, but people always seem to be throwing up blood or coming out of puddles of blood. But worse is how you constantly activate switches by bleeding all over them. I mean, I thought blood was precious to vampires, but here Dracula is just spilling it everywhere.
On a side note, I did like the presentation of this game. When you die, he closes a book and leans back and waits. And then when you press start, he does this. Well, you know, I expected a lot from this game after truly loving the last one. So I do agree it's a bit of a step backwards. It's still a decent enough hack and slash, so I'm giving it 6.5 rubber chickens.
Well, unfortunately for me, I just don't think they got the basics right. So what you're left with is this frustrating slog to just pull off simple mechanics. I'm actually going to give it 4.5.
You're such a disappointment.
So, did you name the game for this week? It was the American McGee classic Scrapland, which was first released in 2004. Set in Chimera, a futuristic city populated only by robots, you played as Detritus Derby, a new arrival who stumbles into a murder mystery involving the worst creature known to robots, a human. And it's unnamed the game for this week because it was developed by Mercury Steam, the same devs behind this week's Castlevania.
Next week on the show, don't forget to bring a towel because we'll be reviewing South Park: The Stick of Truth.
There it is, the inn of the giggling donkey.
Also, it's time, Hex. It's time to die again and again and again, followed by more death in Dark Souls 2. I'm going into lockdown, Hex. I'm not leaving my house until I have all the souls.
Well, I look forward to seeing you as a broken man when you finally do emerge. This weekend over on Spawn Point, our show for younger gamers on ABC3, we're heading for a tropical freeze with the new Donkey Kong.
But if you don't have time for all of that, there's Good Game Pocket Edition, a snappy look at our week of gaming, 8:20 PM Saturday nights on ABC2.
Till next time, may all your games be good ones. Hex out.
Bajo out.